Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Pulse. Hope you're having a fabulous weekend. Thank you for joining us. It's another wonderful day, another show with a topic about some signs that maybe you have seen in our city. And I invited Michael Williams of the Memphis Police Association to the show to share information with us about what's really going on. How are you, sir?
I am doing outstanding, thank you.
All right, now, what is going on? I know we'll start off with a few things. First of all, tell us what you do for the association.
Well, I'm the president of the Memphis Police Association. I represent approximately 2,400 police officers in the great city of Memphis.
Okay. That's a lot of police officers.
Yes, it is.
How many officers do we have here?
I believe under the police services division, we have about 3,000 or a little over 3,000 employees. Out of that, probably about 2,700 are actually police officers. And then you have the services that are provided to the police to keep the organization actually running.
So almost every officer we know is in the association.
Yes, we have probably about 99% enrollment rate of the police officers. There are a couple that aren't, but even as we have started our campaigns and since we've been in office, we've had a lot of officers to actually join the police association, even though they were not members, because they feel that they need to be represented in this city.
And so is our MPD, is our Memphis Police Director, is he?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yes, he is. And I will tell you, the reason why a lot of police officers are actually in the police association as well is because we provide legal. Let's say, for instance, someone was to sue the director.
Okay.
The city would represent him. However, if it was something that the city did not represent him for, then he has prepaid legal with us. So we provide legal representation for all police officers that are members, if it's duty related.
Okay.
Not for divorces and all of that stuff. If you go out there and kill somebody and you're off duty, we don't provide legal defense for that.
What about and you're probably going to say no, but I remember the situation a few weeks ago, the officer who filed a report, and then they found out that he actually was the one who basically was filing the report on. It was something about money.
Right.
And the charges were actually his.
Those are his charges.
Yeah.
Yes. That has nothing to do with
You
his
would
on
not
duty.
represent anything like that?
No.
Okay. All right. So basically, like you said, on duty.
Right. Anything, because in this job, there are so many things that, I could walk into a store and someone could say that, I assaulted them or whatever. And let's say it hypothetically did not happen.
Yeah.
And they file charges against the police officer. That police officer is going to need representation. So therefore, we have an attorney, Godwin Morris, Lorenzi, and Bloomfield, that are on retainer that actually provides legal defense for those guys.
The one who ran the light, was he a part of the...
Was he a member? Yes, he was.
Okay. Did you guys represent him?
There was nothing to represent him for so far.
Okay.
He has options, though. As a member, he can come to the association and say that, I'm being sued because there may be a lawsuit that come out of that, and we will provide legal representation in that lawsuit, yes.
Okay.
But anything criminally that comes out of that, then that's another story.
You and I had a big conversation
Yes,
not long
ma'am.
ago about
You beat me up.
I did not. I did not. I just told you how concerned I was and how sad I
And
was.
rightfully so.
How sad I was.
Rightfully so.
To see those signs,
Yes,
those billboards that
yes.
you guys put up.
Yes.
Whose idea was that?
You know what? I'm sad to see them up as well because I'm a citizen in this city. And a lot of people fail to realize that there are a lot of police officers and their family members that are residents of this city, and everything that we do concern them. However, a lot of times people push and push and push and push till your back is up against the wall. And you have to do something. We cannot strike in this city. The citizens in 1978 went to the polls and voted on a referendum that gave the police officers the right to negotiate. And they said that the city had to be fair. However, we're finding that they're not being fair. We had signed a contract in 2011, I believe, with the city.
Mm-hmm.
The contract was signed. We didn't ask for anything that year. We just said status quo. 3 weeks after that, the mayor proposed a budget to city council, and they took 4.6 from our salaries.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at people like me, my wife's a police officer also, so you actually took 9.2% out of my total household income. And when you sign a contract, that's legal and binding.
Yeah.
If they did a contract with Electrolux or Mitsubishi, they don't go back on it. Matter of fact, they give them more money when they come and ask
So
for
are you
it.
telling me that they should never have taken it, or they did it?
Well, when we were at the negotiation table,
It wasn't legal, or
no, it wasn't legal. We're in federal court right now. So when they talk about, well, we're going to give them a 2.3% raise, that's not a raise. That's and really it's only 1 point whatever percent, because over the last 2 years they've taken money away from us. We've lost money, and that was done illegally. But we're in federal court, and the judge has said that they have possibly violated our 14th Amendment rights. So as far as the police association goes, we're not negotiating 4.6. So the administration can talk about the 4.6. The council can talk about the 4.6. That's on them.
Mm-hmm.
They took it away unilaterally. They can give it back unilaterally. But we feel that we will get it back in federal court. So it's not just about the 4.6 people. That's not what it's all about.
Okay. It's about more than that.
Yes, it is.
So if you get it, if they approve the 2.3%,
Yes.
and you get the 4.6 back in court,
Yes.
will you get 6.9? Is that
Well,
does that add
no,
up correctly?
because if you look at it, you hear a lot of council people and some of the administration say, well, 4.6 raise.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really look at it, even when
You're
they
just getting
proposed
your
it,
money back?
they said a 2.3 restoration. So they're only putting back
Oh.
2.3 of the 4.6. See, you have to look deep.
So if the court says that they've got to give the 4.6 back,
Then they got to give it back
Then
for
they
the
have to
time
give
that it was
all of
gone,
it back.
for the
Oh.
2 years that for the 2 years that they have not paid us, plus overtime that would be calculated on top of that. We're asking for everything because we had a contract, a signed contract, and you violated that contract. It's just like with any other company. If you violate a contract, then you have to honor that contract if the federal courts say that you do. There are cases in Florida and California where cities have tried to do the same thing, and they ended up owing the police $1 billion.
Mm.
So, it's just like the school deal. You should have just paid us.
You do realize, though,
Mhm.
that when you put signs like the ones that you put up, enter
Yes.
at your own risk,
Yes.
or this city does not support public safety.
Yes.
The one that really got me was the enter at your own risk.
Mm-hmm.
Now the other two,
What other two?
the city does not
Support
support
public
safety.
safety.
And the
Mhm.
other one,
Mhm.
I don't remember what the other one says, but when you put those signs up,
Mhm.
were you expecting somewhat of a, not necessarily a backlash? Well, yeah,
Yes.
from people.
Yes. Come on now. This is not something that was just done on a whim. We had to think about the repercussions. We had to think about there would be those that would agree, those that did not like it. But believe it or not, the overwhelming response from citizens has been, you know what? They shouldn't have messed with you in the beginning.
Mm.
They should have left you alone. They took away your right to strike. You have to do something because this affects a lot of the citizenry in this city, and people don't understand that. And what I mean by that is the more you take away pay and benefits and the more you dishonor your contract with police officers, the citizens actually deserve better. With all of the shootings that we have going on, with all of the criminal activity that we have going on, I keep hearing citizens say we need better officers. We need more qualified officers. Now, they have a class that's starting right now that just started.
Uh-huh.
Do you know they can't find qualified people that want to come to this city? Do you know that? Do you know we've had police officers running out the door? They're retiring in record rate. We're losing the wisdom on this police department. Do you know we have young officers under 10 years that are not vested here that are going to Florida, Nashville, Bartlett, Oklahoma, D.C., the FBI? Because think about this.
We didn't know.
Okay.
A lot of us didn't
Yes.
know. So when we see the signs, basically, it's
You're taking it at face value.
It frightens you a little bit.
And it should. And we want to arouse the social consciousness of the citizens because you guys have been asleep and you've been allowed, just like when I talk to people on the city council and they go, Michael, we can't believe the police association did that. And I say, why not? A lot of the things that have been going on over there at 125 North Main City Hall, you guys have been sitting here watching it and allowing it to go on. So why are you surprised? It's almost like you want us to sit back and allow you to beat the police, beat the city employees down. It's just like an abusive relationship. You want me to allow you to beat the members of the police association and to beat the city employees, but you don't want us to say nothing. You don't want me to scream.
So, okay, you've got the signs up.
Uh-huh.
So what about the people that already have a negative view of police officers in the city anyway?
Well, see, but this is what's great about
Does it make it?
But a lot of
worse
people that have negative views of the police. Well, first of all, I just like with anything, you have to evaluate. I see people say, "Oh, the police are so bad. The police are so bad, and the police are doing this, and the police are doing that." I personally am straight out of North Memphis, Scudderfield. And I really know what's going on in my neighborhood. And a lot of the incidences that the police are involved in, if people would be buck naked, honest, and truthful with themselves, a lot of the individuals that they're having these confrontations with, you already know the history of these people. But it's so easy to say the police are just bad guys.
No, I'm talking about isolated incidences.
Well, you're going to have those.
That aren't. So you especially recently, since the year began, there's been at least 7 or so police officer shootings.
Yes.
Then you had, last year, the officer who ran the light.
Yes.
Killed almost an entire family.
Yes.
And then you've had the officer who lied.
Yes.
Who turned in his own police report.
Yes.
You've had officers who have been charged with rape.
Okay.
Officers who've been charged for drugs.
Okay.
With prostitution.
Okay.
Recently.
Well, first of all,
you've had story on top of story on top of story.
Yes.
On top of story.
I agree.
Negative.
Yes.
And then you put up some signs that look as though they're negative.
They are negative, but they're true. And that's our First Amendment right. Exercising our First Amendment right, number one. Now, let's talk about this.
But I'm saying,
let me address the issue when you talk about all of these officers that have been in trouble.
Okay.
How many of these officers? It's easy to press charges against someone, but how many of these officers have the courts can't, because you're innocent until proven guilty.
Absolutely.
See, and that's the problem. And for some reason, officers, when they get in trouble, the news media wants to zoom in because that's a story. When you see people get involved in all of this kind of stuff at FedEx, you don't hear anything. When you see people get involved in this kind of stuff,
you hear about it.
But not like this. It's not just running all over the any time a police officer gets in trouble. Let's say, for instance, an officer is accused of domestic violence. But let's say he didn't do it.
Well, it makes the top stories, news stories.
Exactly.
On
no
TV.
one ever comes back to vindicate these guys when they're found innocent.
So are you telling me that many of those officers that I've mentioned,
I'm telling you, out of last year, you had 20-some officers that were accused of something. And out of those 20-something, you probably didn't even have half of those that were actually convicted of it. But what the public sees is that you have all of these officers that are convicted, or that are accused of whatever. But even with that, when you have almost 2,500 individuals, okay, you're going to have things that happen. That's like bigger than some towns, okay? We're not saying all police officers are good. There are some police that don't deserve to be the police. I even say that. I'm not running away from that. And the other thing is that lends more credence to we need to be able to recruit qualified officers in this city. Are we just going to settle for whatever? There was a time that we only allowed, they had dropped it to high school graduates.
Yeah, I remember that.
But you're talking about someone who needs to be a paramedic, a counselor, a parent, an administrator, a psychologist. That's a lot of responsibility. So you want individuals that have the capacity and the capability to do that. But if you don't provide quality benefit packages comparable to other cities, you're not going to get that.
So you're saying currently in the city of Memphis, we don't compare to other cities who have to deal with the amount of people per capita or this size city.
I'm saying when you have a city like Memphis that makes the FBI list that either is the first, second, third, or fourth most violent city in the nation per capita, you need individuals that have the mental capacity and also the educational level and the wisdom and experience to be able to deal with those situations. You're not going to get that if you don't provide quality packages. And the ones that you have are leaving.
So out of the 2,400, are you telling me that all of them are qualified to be police officers that are in the Memphis Police Association?
Well, let me tell you this. I'm telling you that
since you
being
said
a police officer is not for everybody. And sometimes you don't find that out until you become the police. Now, when you bring individuals on this job and they have the educational background, okay, they college graduates or whatever, but they may not have the attitude and the aptitude to be able to deal with certain situations, okay? It is very stressful out here. When I was out there on the scene the other night of the shooting, and as I was listening to the radio, it was on and popping. Some young man got shot over there on Valentine. Another young lady got stabbed up there on Danny Thomas. They were chasing a robber through Shelby Farms. A police officer car flipped out there at Whitney and Alt Vista. I'm saying these guys are and not only that, we have more citizens that are confronting police officers and challenging police officers and officers that are being hurt. It's becoming very stressful. And I'm going to tell you this, the summer has not come yet. And it normally gets very busy in the summertime.
And I hear what you just said.
Okay.
Okay. The job is stressful.
Yeah.
More people are confronting officers.
Yes.
And if the last two incidences or cases where the people were shot by officers, if it is the case that they were confronted, could it possibly be that it is because of maybe the negative attention or some of the negative things that have been done by officers?
No. It's for me. See, once again, I say look at the total picture. It's
just a question.
Okay, for me, it's a reflection of what's going on just in our neighborhoods,
our
and
neighborhood,
society
or
as a
America.
Whole. Well, I'm focusing on Memphis right now because that's where the police officers for the Memphis Police Association work. But let's talk about a couple of weekends ago, we had 10 shootings in this city. None of them involved police officers. Just this weekend, we had a band of young people running around downtown robbing people that were coming from Africa in April and people that were just downtown. You've looked at the news. I've looked at the news. And I always tell people, be truthful with yourself. What do you see on the news? We see young people getting shot every other night, every day, and sometimes 3, 4, 5 a night. Okay? So when you have that type of activity going on, and they're shooting each other, they're robbing, home invasions, murders. So when that type of activity is going on, what make you think the police... CALEA came in, which is a national agency that rates police departments, accredit them. They said we were doing great. And you know why?
Why?
Because we had over 1 million contacts with citizens last year. And the amount of complaints that we had compared to the 1 million contacts with citizens doesn't even compare, doesn't even rate. Now, anytime a citizen is hurt, that's a bad thing. That's a bad thing. Nobody wants for citizens to be hurt. But if you go to any precinct, you're going to see officers sitting on the desk that can't work because they were involved in confrontations with citizens. We find more citizens want to fight the police. You know, it used to be a time when we said, drop the gun, they dropped the gun. But for some reason, a lot of these young people, they're on 4 bars, they're on SERP, they're on rupees or whatever. They're doing cocaine, they're doing heroin. And even if you look back at some of these individuals that have got shot, I wish the police department, once a lot of this stuff is over, they would come back and tell people the whole story about what may have been involved. I think it would clear a lot of this up when you talk about some of the individuals that they may have gotten to fighting with. Let's say he's on cocaine. Then there's a thing what you call cocaine psychosis, whereas if I hit you, you won't feel it. If I shoot you, you won't feel it. You keep going because your body is numb and you're so hyped up. Your endorphins have kicked in and you're just like a robot, okay? And you have to be taken out, all right? People say, well, why didn't you shoot him in the leg? Well, if you shoot an individual in the leg, their hands are still free to fire their weapon. That doesn't make sense. You're trying to disable this individual so that he cannot continue the activity that he's involved in. You know what I mean? Why didn't you shoot the tire? Well, if you shoot the tire, that individual is still in control of that car. Come on.
But with all of the negative press, so what does the association do to help us see the police officers in another light? Or is that a goal or focus of yours?
Well, it looked like that would be, and I ask the media all the time, you need to focus on, we have individuals that are delivering babies. We have individuals that are saving lives. We have individuals that walk up on these shooting scenes that the other 10 people that got shot, police officers are going to be there. So they're the ones that are dealing with the families that are mourning. They're the ones that are first ones on the scene when they see these bodies and all of this carnage. They're coming up on dead babies. They're coming up when the lady was found just recently from Germantown that was wherever she was, it was police officers that had to go look for her. And they were the first ones to see this lady. There are a lot of good things that police officers do on a daily basis that the citizens take for granted. You know, there are police officers that change tires on cars out there that when you have older females or women that are stranded, but all of that stuff goes unlooked because they said that's your job. But it's not my job to change a tire, but I do that because I want to serve.
So for the fact that there are officers who are obviously not good police officers, and we did talk about that earlier. What does the Memphis Police Association do to help them become good? Do you do anything? Do you have any programs set in place to help them become better officers?
Well, see, but what we've tried to do, even with the Memphis Police Department, I think there was a time back I started asking the city to do post-traumatic stress disorder. We don't have doctors. You can't go to a doctor in this city. They don't have one on call that's qualified to do post-traumatic stress disorder. And because these officers are involved in so much criminal activity, they're confronted. Can you imagine every day, going into a neighborhood that's drug-filled, maybe prostitution, criminal activity, and every day you got to confront these people every day? That's like being in a combat zone. You can compare that to being in Afghanistan, and I can do it because I've been in war zones in the military for 22 years. So I see, and I'm starting to see more officers that are getting stressed out from being in this environment. This city needs to provide post-traumatic stress disorder counseling to some of these guys. Now, just going to a regular psychologist, no, they don't.
Not even the police department?
No, they don't. No, they don't. And I've asked for that. And every time I did, the city says, well, yeah, we're going to look into it. Mike, they want to pacify me. Mike, we're going to look into it. Okay. But there's still not a doctor that's on the city that we can send these guys to. They have to go get training outside or counseling outside.
Your billboards went up. Of course, the media talked to certain people. I'm going to give you some comments and read to you an email that Mayor Warden sent out. And you give me a response. Okay. First, let's look at the email that Mayor Warden sent out. He said that he's received a number of calls recently from people wanting to learn more about his support and the city's support for public safety. So he addressed a few things, and he said 60 cents of every dollar from the city's budget goes toward public safety,
Mhm.
police and fire.
Mhm.
3 out of every 4 employees are public safety workers.
Mhm.
While other non-public safety divisions have had their budgets cut tremendously over
Mhm.
the last several years,
Mhm.
the budget for the Memphis Police Department has increased by over $40 million
Mhm.
since fiscal year 2008.
Mhm.
Memphis has one of the strongest public safety officer per citizen ratios among cities across the country.
Mhm.
Memphis has been able to avoid many of the sweeping layoffs of public safety officers that have impacted cities like Newark, New Jersey, Toledo, Ohio,
Mhm.
Oakland, and Cleveland. And lastly, he says, like all other city workers, members of the police and fire department are living with a 4.6% cut in pay.
Mhm.
And he said, I must share that this is an extraordinary step that did not come as a first option,
Mhm.
first of all. When he was asked about the billboards that you guys put up, I guess there were just 2. The
Mhm.
city does not support public safety, and then, of course, the other, danger,
Mhm.
enter at your own risk, which
Mhm.
would frighten me off if if I'm just coming to visit.
Mhm.
It would just make me frightened, make me want to go back home.
Right.
Okay?
Mhm.
Mayor Warden says basically the facts of the matter is that it's not true.
Mhm.
And then when they talked to Memphis Convention and Visitors Bureau President Kevin Kane, he said whoever came up with this strategy to try and get attention, I think is very disrespectful.
Mhm.
Disrespectful.
Mhm.
And then, of course, there were other comments made. I'm sure you've heard them all.
Right.
But as it relates to those things,
Well, first of all, to Mr. Kane, who lives wherever, who makes I don't know how much money for the Visitors and Tourist Bureau. He don't live in North and South Memphis, so he does not know the status of this city. He only knows what they're spending money on out east and in the popular areas, number one. Number two, the administration try to make it appear to be a bad thing that 61 cents out of every dollar goes to public safety. It's supposed to. Why you keep trying to make it into a bad thing? The citizens pay their money to be serviced. That's why the government was set up to provide services to the citizens. It wasn't set up to be a bank for economic development so that you could provide all of this money. Could you imagine? We did Commerce Square 1, right? When Pinnacle was there. Do you know they spent $20 million on that building? Do you know that building does not belong to the city? It belongs to a private owner. Do you know we also spent $3 million on that parking garage that's attached to Commerce Square 1, and now Pinnacle is gone, but we're still paying that $20 million for that building, and there's nobody in there that belongs to the city? That $20 million could have went to parks programs for children. It could have went to libraries. It could have went to senior citizen centers. It could have went to help pave the streets. Do you know we're paying for an $18 million garage at Overton Square? And I'm not against economic development, but I'm saying we have ignored the children in this city. We have ignored the streets in this city. We have ignored putting money into, we talk about blight. But do you know they spent some of the blight money, I believe, to redo the Chiska Hotel? That money could have been used to knock down buildings. I see some buildings being knocked down in some of the communities. Mm-hmm. But see, when I talk about the bigger picture, we want to arouse the social consciousness of the people in America and say what he wants to say. We're not Newark. We're not whatever. We're not in the financial situation that they are. Evidently, we got so much money now that they're lowering the taxes, okay? We got so much money now that the budget, he say, was
they're trying to increase the taxes now.
Well, some are trying to lower the taxes. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, we don't have a state tax, and I'm not a proponent of raising taxes, but we don't have a state tax. Mm-hmm. So realistically, we still have one of the lowest tax bases in the country, believe it or not, because when you go up to Newark and you go up to these other places, you have to pay a state tax. Most of those are Commonwealth states, but it's a known fact that places where taxes are higher, and I'm not a proponent of raising taxes, but places where taxes are higher, they actually have a better city, believe it or not, okay?
And I would love to go on, but we don't have the time to do it. You put the billboards up.
Yes.
Do you regret it?
Well, Mike.
And if you were to do anything different, if there were another campaign, a more positive one that could still be effective or be an attention getter, would you have done something else?
Well, if there was a more positive campaign that we could have done, but guess what? This campaign has gotten the city buzzing, talking. It's gotten the attention of individuals that were just walking with their eyes wide shut and they wasn't paying attention. Now it's kind of like, hold up, stop. What's really going on? You know, it's almost like a cry for people to say, you know what, you need to take back control of your government. You need to take back the control of the direction of the city. You need to look at what's really going on. You need to see where your tax dollars are really going. If nothing else, you can go online to the City of Memphis website and you can look at the budget. You can look at the police budget. When he talks about an increase in $40 million, since Mayor Warden has been in there, believe it or not, he has cut the police budget. Don't take my word for it. Go back and check the numbers. Now, when Director Godwin was in there in 2008 and 2009, guess what? He got what he wanted, but Director Armstrong can't get what he really needs. They cut his budget. If you remember a couple of months ago, Director Armstrong was saying that they tried to hook him up by saying, whatever happened to community policing and whatever happened to Blue Crush? And then he said, well, I had to cut some things, remember? Because my budget was cut. And then because there was no money for overtime, then all of a sudden somebody popped up and said, oh, I got $5 million. Why didn't you just ask for it? Why should he have to ask for it when you know what the crime is like in this city? That meant his budget was cut, not increased. Now, there may be times when he have to put police officers out there and they have to increase the budget, but it's not because the administration did it. It's because they had to do it.
Michael Williams, ladies and gentlemen, Memphis Police Association president. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you for having me, Stormy.
All right, it's The Pulse. We keep our fingertips on the pulse of our community. We've got to wrap this up. I mean, the show, we got to wrap it up. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you allowing me the opportunity.
I think we're more enlightened. All right, y'all, it's The Pulse. We'll see you next week, same time, same station. Have yourself a fabulous week.
Wake up, Memphis.